If you clicked on this video, you're probably aware that the Pokemon market is going through a major shift, and you're definitely smart enough to know that investing in Pokemon collectibles is more volatile than it's ever been before. I mean, singles are moving in a very strange direction, and knowing which Pokemon collectibles to buy and sell is just straight up confusing, as we do have a few issues on hand. Though throughout this video, I'm going to be walking you through how to navigate the current Pokemon market and ensure you don't overspend, and more importantly, not to get sucked into the endless FOMO. So think of this video as a little bit of a map to navigate the 2025 market. Now, if we haven't met before, my name is Phil. I've been collecting Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh since the late 90s and early 2000s, and trading cards were one of the biggest hobbies that I had as a kid. I also have a really deep passion for Pokemon, and I have a career in marketing outside this channel, so I try to blend all these together, and I've been told that this channel gives a little bit of a unique perspective to the Pokemon TCG. Though I suppose one question that comes up is, why do I need to watch a video to navigate the current Pokemon world? And the main reason is because it's just very complicated. For example, we did have a bit of a threat of an oversupply issue that may take place, and the general confidence for collectibles is just all over the place. Because one really solid point of information to unpack is that the recent Pokemon TCG Pocket boom has caused a huge influx of fans to enter, and there's this looming uncertainty across the whole market. Though before we get into the bulk of this video, I do want to cover today's video sponsor, which is Misprint. And funnily enough, Misprint is an amazing resource for Pokemon investing at the moment. So Misprint is a US-based website which allows you to buy Pokemon cards and products at community-driven prices. Now, Misprint's really cool because it allows your Pokemon investments and collectibles to have immediate liquidity, which is actually super useful in the current market. So for example, as you can see here, each product has a buy now feature along with a sell now price. So this becomes a really useful tool if you have a lot of money invested in collectibles, as you do have an option for immediate liquidity. Misprint also has an awesome misprice giveaway section where they have weekly giveaways of premium slabs, and if a winner is chosen, they only have to pay $5 for the prize. As more people enter the world of Pokemon collectibles and investing in Pokemon becomes far more mainstream, it really does become a great tool. Now, the best part is if you do sign up and use my referral code, you do get $5 off your first purchase. Definitely feel free to check out Misprint. All the details can be found in the description of this video. Now, the Pokemon market really has found itself in a strange position. And the first golden tip I can give anyone trying to make sense of the Pokemon world right now is do not FOMO. So FOMO, I mean, all of you know what that stands for, which is the fear of missing out. I mean, this plays probably one of the biggest roles in people overspending on certain Pokemon cards and products. And one thing that's very common is sometimes the community will get fixated on a certain card or a certain trend which takes place. And if you're new, you may overspend, or you may try to buy these and try catch the hype train, right? Though in my experience, if you let FOMO be a deciding factor, you are making the wrong decision. And the reason I'm even telling you this is because I've made this mistake too many times. I've already spoke about it, but one silly mistake I have made is if I would see that a card that the community would be talking about, right? And people would be getting excited over this particular card, I would try overspend because I would try to keep up with what was trending. Though by chasing every new trend, you will be losing in the long run. Like, there's been a lot of trends which have come about, right? Like, if we take a quick look at some of the more notable trends within the Pokemon world in the last few years, we have heaps, right? Firstly, we have the vintage boom during the 2020 and 2021 era. So, during this era, everyone was fixated on vintage Pokemon cards. The OGs, the original base set, the first editions, the whole lot, right? Modern was out, vintage was in. Now, during this hype period, people were spending wild amounts on Pokemon cards. There was even a sale for a PSA 10 first edition Lugia from Neo Genesis that sold for $127,000 during this time period, and then around a year later sold for $47,000 US. Now, everyone was stuck at home during this time because of the pandemic, and people were ripping out their old collectibles, and this lasted for nearly 2 years, right? Though vintage Pokemon cards really took a steep decline downwards, and a lot of them are still not back to their original 2020 prices. And it's probably going to be a long time before they reach those prices again. And the main reason was because FOMO got the better of the collectors. That's not all of it, right? We also had the 2023 Japanese female trainer card phase, right? So during early to mid 2023, everyone just became obsessed with Japanese female trainer cards such as Miriam, Iono, and Misty. Now these cards were selling for straight up absurd prices, and people who never even purchased Japanese Pokemon cards or, even bought a Japanese pack started buying these cards. These people had absolutely zero passion for the Japanese Pokemon TCG, zero care. They only cared about what was trending. And as of today, most of these female trainer cards have dropped like a pin. I mean, the PSA 10 Miriam Full Art was a notable example of this FOMO, right? Selling for $660 in 2023 to selling for $50 in PSA 10 in 2025. And it doesn't even stop there, right? Because even as of recently in 2025, we had an illustration rare buyout. This is where everyone was buying illustration rare Pokemon cards just because they became trending. Now, illustration rare cards like the Houndour from Obsidian Flames that were selling for $2 started selling for $30 in a matter of a few weeks. Though, people did regret some of these purchases because they did have quite a steady reversal, and there's also some issues with market manipulation as well that's happening as well. As you can see, right, FOMO is really something you want to avoid. And also as a pro tip, always just sleep on a purchase as well, man, because I actually don't purchase any of my Pokemon collectibles at evening or late at night, because when you're tired or you're drained from a day of work, you can easily impulse buy to make your day go better or easier, right? Because, a lot of people just overspend. You could have had the worst day at work, or, you could have had anything happen in your day. You go online, you think you got a good deal, you overspend at nighttime, and then you wake up in the morning and realize, maybe I shouldn't have bought that. So that's why I really think it's a good idea just to always wait the next day to make a purchase. Now, also going on to another tip for navigating the Pokemon world right now is keeping up to date with the market, right? Because it's kind of like you need to have active participation. So you can do this by, following forums or subscribing to your favorite creators. So for example, on my channel, I try to update my viewers with the current Pokemon TCG world with consistent uploads. So, if you do like these videos, definitely feel free to subscribe to stay in the loop. Though, staying in the know is important, right? Because the reason why is because if you're keeping an eye on the market, you'll be able to make better purchasing decisions. The reason for this is because you won't overpay on certain items because, right, like for example, if you're staying in the loop, you may get early news that a set is being reprinted or heavily restocked. And then with this information, you can potentially hold off on buying until the reprint or restock enters the market. The reason why that's so important is that some products can sell for double or triple retail price, and reprints traditionally can help calm the market down. So when you're keeping in the know, you can make better purchasing decisions. Or, the same goes if you actually own a specific chase card, right? You can see when the market is rising, and you can also sell and capitalize on those gains. So that's why it's really important to follow what's happening within the Pokemon world. Now, I was speaking about market manipulation, right? And that was following the whole FOMO scenario, right? So one thing to be aware of in the current Pokemon market is market manipulation. So you may be thinking, wait, what? People kind of manipulate Pokemon cards? How does that work, right? So in some circumstances, a group will do a coordinated buyout of a certain card. So recent examples of this was like the Drowsy from Scarlet and Violet base. So you can see here on the graph, you can clearly see when the buyout happened and just how far it dropped in price. The same thing goes with the Brute Bonnet from Paradox Rift. You can really clearly see the buyout and then the dump that happened afterwards. So, there's a lot of similarities to this in kind of other areas, right? I mean, if you've ever played RuneScape, a lot of clans used to actually do this, right? They would buy certain items and continue buying them, and they would create this artificial scarcity. And once the price rise by a certain amount, they would all dump it for some pretty hefty profits, right? Well, this is pretty much identical, but instead with Pokemon cards. It's just good to be aware of this because these threats are definitely here, and it's important to stay on top of these things because you kind of want to know what's happening within the world, right? Now, I should probably note that market manipulation isn't that overly common, and it does happen for a few cards every year or so. But it is very important to be aware of this as you don't want to be purchasing a card in the middle of a buyout, right? Now, also, to navigate the Pokemon TCG, right? A massive way to improve your skills in this world is to learn the Pokemon world outside of trading cards. So, it's actually really common because I see so many people who collect sports cards have transitioned to Pokemon cards on this channel, and they just say, hey, Phil, I've actually just been collecting sports cards, but now I've gotten into Pokemon cards. They're so awesome, right? And this is really great to see new people coming in. However, one cool thing is actually try to get involved and play the Pokemon games or get involved within the franchise. Now, the reason why this is because you can actually begin making smart purchases because you have an edge over the average consumer. as when you understand the franchise, you can kind of predict and kind of like do future forecasting on trends, right? For example, in a previous video, I actually go over how I purchased a certain Mega Evolution Pokemon card because I had the intuition that Mega Pokemon would climb in price again because of the new Legends EA game. But that's only a decision that could be made when you have a deep level of understanding around the Pokemon TCG world and Pokemon in general, right? And that's why I encourage my viewers to always expand your knowledge outside of the TCG. Now, one thing as well, right? If you are looking to connect with the Pokemon community and ask questions, definitely feel free to join my channel's Discord server. You can actually get some really quick updates, and also you'll be notified whenever a channel giveaway is active. The server invite is within the description of this video. Now, also another area that we have to talk about is scalping, right? Because it's pretty rampant within 2025. And you know, it's a topic that I think everyone needs to be informed about, right? So right now, Pokemon has a pretty big scalper problem, which is essentially when people buy a load of products and try to resell them for a profit on the secondary market. Though I think it's incredibly important to not buy scalped products and just try to do your best to score products at retail price when you can. Now, obviously that's pretty hard because buying sets at retail price is getting pretty challenging, right? Though you have to kind of get comfortable with missing out. And I know that's probably not the advice you want to hear, but there's literally no reason to be giving your hard-earned money to someone else making a profit off a difficult situation. I mean, I've been collecting for a while and I've learned that the art of missing out is like a superpower within this hobby, right? And that's honestly something you only learn from being years in the game. Like a few years ago, I would need to get every new set. But now I know if I miss out on a set, there will be another. And you know, then this crazy market is eventually gonna calm down. And then you know what, in a few years, we're gonna have another wild market and again, right? The only reason why this market is currently like this right now is because scalpers don't have much of a reason not to really purchase as much products as they can for retail price because the secondary market is so hot. But like we saw with Journey Together, that product was heavily scalped, but now we're kind of getting so many people finding Journey Together in stores again. And the scalpers are now realizing, hey, maybe that wasn't the set that we should have overloaded with, right? And that's why it's really important to be patient during this time period because you don't want to overspend on products just because FOMO and like, oh, I really need to get this set right now because things will change, they always do. Though I think the main aspect, right, of navigating the current Pokemon market is to ensure you love what you're purchasing and not just buying what's trending or what you see online, because while keeping up with the news about TCG is important, you don't want to get sucked in by just purchasing what everyone's hyping up, right? Because you're gonna get lost in the game. Like here's the thing, right? Learning about Pokemon and all the collectibles actually takes more time than people like to give it credit for. And every generation has its unique quirks that are very unique to them, right? For example, the Sun and Moon era had tag team cards, right? Sword and Shield era had alternate arts. Scarlet and Violet has the illustration rares and special illustration rares. So you actually need to learn how to collect for that era. And sometimes people will say, oh, just collect what you love. And I do agree, but the reality is Pokemon cards are super expensive. So that's why I'm making these videos like this, because I want to ensure that you're at least buying products that fulfill your happiness factor, but also they have the potential to rise over time. Though, you know, another quick rule that I always tell people is never buy a lightly played or damaged modern Pokemon card. Because while you may get it for a better price, right? The future value of that card is never going to reach its full potential. And furthermore, if you are one day in the position to send some of your collection to get graded, you know, maybe in a few years from today, if you're buying all your cards in mint condition, they also have a chance of one day scoring a PSA 10. So you're kind of future-proofing yourself. And that's why I always tell people, man, if you're gonna buy a modern Pokemon card today, if you get it mint, it's always in a better position because things can change, right? You might over the course of 2 or 3 years, purchase so many cards, and as long as they're in mint condition, one day, the day may come that you decide, hey, I'm gonna send these to get graded. And because you bought them in great condition, there is always a chance that a lot of them could come back as PSA 10, which just adds so much value to the cards. So that's why if you're buying modern Pokemon cards, get them mint while you can. Though I think one thing that gets really lost in this whole whirlwind of hype with Pokemon collecting, right? And the whole investing side as well, is it seems that some people lose the enjoyment out of the hobby. And if you're trying to navigate this hobby, I always recommend that you try find a collection goal that's unique to you. For For example, that may mean filling a binder up of a particular artist and, include all the commons and all the reverse holos, or maybe choosing a card to collect in every language and stuff like that, right? Because your collecting journey actually becomes something more exciting than just looking at graphs and hoping that all your collectibles appreciate. Because if history shows us anything, collectibles will just naturally appreciate over time, but the secret to it is it just takes a lot of time. Like, one of my favorite ways to collect is to actually try scope out super affordable cards that have the highest chance for growth. And if you are interested in the 10 Pokemon cards under $10, you can actually see that video right here. Within this video on screen, I'll go over the 10 best Pokemon cards currently under 10 USD. Click the video that's appearing on screen and I'll see you there.